Today's episode is sponsored by Real Estate for Life. In Lieutenant General Smedley Butler's book, War is a Racket, he explained how wars were started and fought to support the wealthy industrialists who always profited from conflict by securing government contracts for everything from military weapons, hardware, uniforms, food, vehicles, aircraft, guns, ammunition, and even chemicals. President Dwight D. Eisenhower also warned against the military-industrial complex. So let's get into it. What is the military-industrial complex? How have they shaped American foreign policy? Do they still have influence over foreign policy, and if so, what is that influence? Hello, I'm Colin Heaton, military veteran, historian, author, and welcome to this episode of Forgotten History. On January 17, 1961, Dwight D. Eisenhower concluded his presidential term by warning the nation about the increasing power of the military-industrial complex. He brought unparalleled experience to his speech, such as his life of service in uniform, as well as his tenure as the Supreme Allied Commander in the European theater during World War II. He warned against reducing the military and also stated that nuclear weapons were a solid deterrent to Soviet aggression. But he also warned, while we recognize the imperative need for this development, we must not fail to comprehend its grave implications. We must guard against the acquisition of unwarranted influence. The potential for the disastrous rise of misplaced power exists and will persist. Until the latest of our world conflicts, the United States had no armaments industry, but American makers of plowshares could, with time and as required, make swords as well. But we can no longer risk emergency improvisation of national defense. We have been compelled to create a permanent armaments industry of vast proportions. He was referring to companies like General Motors and Ford Motor Company that rapidly shifted from production of cars and trucks into building military vehicles, including tanks, half-tracks, and even aircraft. These government contracts, as well as the money flowing in, allowing these companies to hire millions of previously unemployed Americans, pulled the nation out of the Great Depression. As a result of recent world events, especially World War II, nearly every American industry answered the call and successfully converted their domestic product production into a wartime industrial giant line unlike any other. After World War II, just like World War I, the United States drastically reduced its military personnel as a way to save money. But that changed after the Korean War as the threat of communist aggression became far more relevant. If you are moving to a warmer state or just a family-friendly region, contact Real Estate for Life to work with one of their 1,400 conscientious, experienced agents in the U.S. or Canada. Go to realestateforlife.org and don't forget to mention you heard it on Forgotten History. Also, from Real Estate for Life's one-stop shop, you'll find principal vendors for financial and real estate planning, new mortgages and refinancing, Christ-centered healthcare, and more. So, visit realestateforlife.org today. Eisenhower witnessed the creation of a permanent massive armaments industry, something which had never been seen before in world history. Eisenhower also cautioned against the federal government becoming too deeply involved with military and industrial leaders. He was also concerned about the massive spending that would occur in an open arms race against the Soviet Union, which would drain away financial resources from other critical domestic projects, such as his Eisenhower interstate system, which was the national highway system we see today, as well as schools, hospitals, and infrastructure maintenance. He saw the collaboration as necessary for national defense, but on a limited scale, and that the American people needed to be aware and wary of any such unions. One of his greatest concerns was the rise of the military corporations, defense contractors, and others with a nose in the trough. He saw the birth of massive armies of lobbyists representing these companies, contributing to to members of Congress, primarily senators and representatives, to get their foot in the door to have bills put forth for votes to secure highly lucrative contracts and have them approved for their respective firms. Today, there are far fewer technology-producing corporations than there were decades ago, since companies like Boeing, Raytheon, Lockheed Martin, General Dynamics, General Electric, and Northrop Grumman are well established deep inside the halls of political power. Due to having their respective branches and companies scattered throughout the nation in many states, they have excelled at both lobbying politicians who represent those states, stating the jobs they provided can provide and increase the state GDPs as well as bring in taxes. They also have excellent marketing teams to advertise and promote their respective interests and products. All of these companies do provide a service to the national defense, but some smaller firms do not really provide anything on a regular basis. Their money is made when they must supply materiel to increase production during conflict. A few are subsidiary companies that provide components for aircraft, rockets, and missiles, nuts, bolts, etc. Their livelihood depends upon congressional appropriations and spending as well, and this is where the lobbyists come into play. As a result of all of this, Eisenhower tried to cut the Pentagon's budget while maintaining a prominent deterrence force, but not spending massive amounts of money to increase the military at the expense of other programs. Eisenhower also said, "The jet plane that roars overhead cost $750,000. That's more than a man will make in his lifetime. What world can afford this kind of thing for long?" Former Secretary of Defense Robert Gates echoed Eisenhower, a fellow Kansan. "Does the number of warships we have and are building really put America at risk when the U.S. battle fleet is larger than the next 13 navies combined, 11 of which are our partners and allies? Is it a dire threat that, by 2020, the United States will have only 20 times more advanced stealth fighters than China?" These are the kinds of questions Eisenhower asked as Commander-in-Chief. They are the kind of questions I believe he would ask today. That statement was made many years ago, and now we have the Chinese with more ships than we do. Also, it is proven that a strong president can and has deterred foreign aggression, but in some cases we have had presidents who sought conflict for material gain. Woodrow Wilson wanted to get into World War I because his greatest benefactors who supported his second term were at risk of losing their investments in Europe should the Central Powers emerge victorious. Franklin D. Roosevelt needed to get into World War II to help get the nation out of the Great Depression after his socialist-styled programs failed to produce the desired result. Harry Truman had little choice when North Korea invaded South Korea and threatened U.S. and UN personnel in that conflict, but the military-industrial complex was ready and waiting. Arguably the best example of a president not just bowing to the military-industrial complex but being an active part was Lyndon B. Johnson. He owned major stock options in Hughes Aircraft Company, Bell Textron, later named Bell Helicopter, and many other defense contractors. His desire to expand his investment portfolio and also assist his friends in government industry were probably the prime considerations for his getting the U.S. deeply involved in Vietnam with the false Gulf of Tonkin incident. So see our videos on LBJ and the Gulf of Tonkin for more details. The military contractors gained forward momentum during the first Gulf War, during Operations Desert Shield and Desert Storm, as the United Nations coalition staged in Saudi Arabia for the eventual thrust into Kuwait and Iraq. After Operation Desert Storm in February 1991, the Pentagon, led by the Secretary of Defense Dick Cheney, paid Halliburton, a company to whom Cheney was well connected, a subsidiary company, Brown and Root Services, over $8.5 million to study the possible use of private military contractors to operate with American soldiers in future combat zones. In addition, Halliburton also secured the contracts to repair and operate the oil wells in Kuwait destroyed by Saddam Hussein's forces, worth over $7 billion. Neither of these contracts were competitive bids, and in fact, there were no secure bids from other companies. In fact, no other companies were even invited to bid, making the Bush and Cheney families exclusive recipients and even more wealthy. The next major event where the military-industrial complex made its footprint known was the invasion of Iraq in 2003 during the War on Terror, and Afghanistan the year before, which also provided the contractors with exceptional profit-making potential. Of great interest, in May 2003, Security Exchange Commission filings show Halliburton revealed that its subsidiary KBR, formerly known as Kellogg Brown & Root, had paid a Nigerian official $2.4 million in bribes in order to receive favorable tax treatment. And on January 24, 2006, Halliburton KBR received a $385 million no-bid contract by the Department of Homeland Security to build the detention facility at Guantanamo Bay, Cuba. The best example was when Bonatine Greenhouse, a civil servant with 20 years of contracting experience in the Pentagon, complained to the Army several times that Halliburton, quote, had been unlawfully receiving special treatment for work in Iraq, Kuwait, and the Balkans, end quote. She also provided documented evidence that Halliburton was overcharging the Department of Defense for moving fuel into Kuwait and Iraq. As a result of her oversight, she was demoted, effectively punished for bringing this to light. The military-industrial complex had expanded widely into the energy fields of gas and oil, and conflict only makes those stock options even more attractive. They also became multinational corporations operating around the world with a finger in every proverbial pie, often working outside the restrictions of U.S. federal law. Essentially, the major defense contractors make the bulk of their money when there is war, whether we are involved or if we are supplying other nations during their conflicts. Do Ukraine and the Israeli-Palestinian conflicts come to mind? Until we outlaw paid lobbyists, the Congress emplaces more effective laws, there will always be graft and corruption. But do not hold your breath for any of that. Many of these politicians and general-grade officers secure very lucrative contracts with these companies, and many become lobbyists themselves. So, we can take Butler and Eisenhower at their word and beware of the motivations for conflict. War is very profitable, but those who profit from it never bear the brunt of combat, and seldom do their children. They never feel the pain and suffering, and they never pay the price for their greed. Thanks for watching today's episode of Forgotten History. If you like this episode, please consider becoming a channel member or joining our Patreon page. This would help us offset the ever-increasing cost of production. As always, please like, share, and comment. And if you have any show ideas, please contact us, and we'll get back to you as soon as possible. Until next time.